OK, we've had the negative reactions, Rita and Daisy. We've had the AFL. Here we go again. Rita, tell us about this.
Well, this is just pitiful, really. The AFLW has decided that they can't have a minute's silence because it's Indigenous round and there's discomfort with remembering the monarch, possibly, one of the most special, powerful, significant women in modern history, and this is supposed to be a women's competition, and they cannot take a minute to pay tribute to her enormous contribution over 70 years because, I don't know, a few lovies are upset because it undermines Indigenous round in their eyes.
This
I just
drives
find
me,
this
Rita,
absurd.
absolutely nuts and crazy. How have we got ourselves into a position? What failure of education? That's what it is. Failure of political leadership in this country, failure of education, Daisy, that you have Indigenous, this idea has been allowed to be out there that somehow the monarchy, the British monarchy, colonialism, etc., is anathema to Indigenous Australians. You look at any other colonial empire in the history of this planet, none of them would have done the job that the British Empire did with settling and colonising Australia to bring laws and civilisation. Had any other empire landed on these shores, we would not be having an Indigenous round of AFW or the L or whatever it is, or anything else. From the moment they arrived, it was clear the British said, we will respect and look after the Indigenous population. It was in the laws. Yes, bad things happened, but they did not happen through the legal system. And it's disgraceful to pitch these two oppositions, the monarchy versus Indigenous Australians. You have proud Indigenous Australians, many of them, who look up to and respect the monarchy, Daisy.
Well, exactly. What was so ridiculous about it, in addition to the fact it is totally a failure of education, is that it assumes that all Indigenous people think exactly the same way. And in fact, there was an Indigenous elder by the name of Ian Hunter who came out and roundly criticised the decision and said how completely disrespectful to Her Majesty to do that. So many Indigenous people really do look up to Her Majesty. It's racist to assume a whole group of people thinks the same, and there's the AFLW doing it.
That's if you want a race-based referendum, you're going to get a lot more decisions like this.
Yes.
Right. So this is a little bit of an insight, and Warren Mundine was amongst Indigenous leaders who came out and said he was absolutely appalled by the AFL for making this decision because the AFL, AFLW, they're pretty much one and the same. One funds the other, and the AFLW has really become almost like an activist movement as opposed to a sporting code.
Well, I'm sorry, people should stop going to their games.
Yeah.
Don't go to their games.
Not many people
watch
do,
their
Rowan.
games, have nothing to do with them. If they want to kick a ball around the field and be disrespectful, then let them do it without any support from the public.
One of the amusing things is, and this is how just incoherent they are with their activism. Not only is it an activist league, but you've got them running around in pride jumpers, for example, with Qatar Airlines as their sponsor. Qatar, where homosexuality is a
off
crime.
The roof with you.
It's a criminal offence. People, LGBT community, are completely oppressed and persecuted there, and you've got Qatar on your jumper and a rainbow. I mean, really, if you care about this stuff, if you want to be an activist league, at least try to be coherent about it.
It's also worth pointing out that, for better or worse, underneath Queen Elizabeth, great swathes of the British Empire were decolonised, literally, and well, it's hard to find a country that did better after the British left, put it that way.
Well, that's a good
You can
point.
find plenty that did a hell of a lot worse.